Throughout history, humans have gone to war over the dumbest things imaginable: religion, territory, pride. But nothing gets humans angrier than messing with their food. Here are 5 times dinner became deadly. You think modern food fights are intense? Try starting an actual war over seasoning. We aren't talking about metaphorical battles here. These are real wars with real armies, fought over ingredients you probably have in your pantry right now. Fair warning, after this episode, you may never look at your spice rack the same way again. War 1, the Salt War. Let's start with the War of Jenkins' Ear. Yes, that's the actual name. In 1731, Spanish Coast Guards boarded British smuggler Robert Jenkins's ship and did what any reasonable authority figure would do. They cut off his ear. But Jenkins wasn't smuggling drugs or weapons. He was smuggling salt. Britain had been illegally trading salt in Spanish Caribbean waters for decades, undercutting Spanish monopolies. The Spanish were getting salty about it. See what I did there? 8 years later, Jenkins showed up to Parliament with his preserved ear in a jar and basically said, "Remember when Spain mutilated me over seasoning? Good times." Parliament's response: "Time for war." What followed was 8 years of naval battles across the Caribbean and Mediterranean, costing thousands of lives and millions in today's money. The kicker? The war ended in a stalemate. Nobody won the salt, Jenkins never got justice for his ear, and Spain eventually lost most of its Caribbean colonies anyway. Sometimes the only winner in a food war is the guy selling both sides their cannons. War 2, the Pastry War. Next up, that time France invaded Mexico over pastries. No, seriously. In 1838, France declared war on Mexico because a French baker's shop got trashed during a riot, and Mexico refused to pay damages. Meet Remontel, a French pastry chef in Mexico City who claimed Mexican officers destroyed his shop and ate his pastries without paying. His demand? 60,000 pesos. For context, that's about $2 million today. Just for pastries? Outrageous. When Mexico said nope, France sent 30 ships and 4,000 soldiers to collect what they called a debt of honor. The French Navy blockaded Mexican ports and bombarded the fortress at Veracruz, all while demanding Mexico pay for fancy cakes. But here's where it gets weird. This wasn't really about pastries. France wanted to collect on millions in unpaid debts from Mexican citizens and the government, and the baker's complaint was just the excuse they needed to start shooting until Mexico paid up. The war lasted only a few months, but it cost Mexico 200,000 pesos in damages, plus they had to pay the original pastry debt. So Remontel got his money, France collected most of their debts, and Mexico learned that European powers would use literally any excuse to start shooting if you owed them. The lesson? Pay your pastry bills, or you might end up fighting the French Navy. War 3, the Codfish War. Iceland and Britain fought 3, count 'em 3, separate wars over who gets to catch fish. Not oil, not territory, not ideology. Fish. Cold, slimy, unremarkable fish. For centuries, British ships sailed to Icelandic waters to catch cod, because apparently British fish weren't good enough for British fish and chips. Iceland, being a tiny island nation, decided they'd had enough of Britain stealing their main economic resource. So in 1958, Iceland did something incredibly ballsy. They expanded their fishing zone from 4 miles to 12 miles offshore, and told Britain's massive fishing fleet to get pushing. Britain's response? Make us nerds. What followed was the most polite naval conflict in history. Icelandic patrol boats would sail up to British trawlers and cut their fishing nets while British warships tried to stop them without actually starting World War III. The Icelanders had secret weapons, net cutters designed specifically to slice through British fishing gear without harming the boats or crews. Iceland also threatened to leave NATO and kick out the US military base that was protecting the North Atlantic from Soviet submarines. Suddenly, fish became a matter of Cold War strategy. America told Britain to back down, because losing Iceland to the Soviets over fishing rights would be strategically stupid if not catastrophic. Britain caved, Iceland won. Then Iceland expanded fishing to 50 miles in 1972, and the whole thing happened again. Then 200 miles in 1975. Each time, Iceland's tiny coast guard defeated the British Royal Navy through sheer determination and strategic tantrum throwing. Today, Iceland controls some of the richest fishing waters in the world. Britain buys fish from Iceland, and everyone pretends this wasn't completely ridiculous. Never underestimate a small country with really good fish and basically nothing else to lose. War 4. The Onion War. In 1955, America almost invaded Holland because the Dutch government was being mean to American onion farmers. This is the Onion War. And yes, that's what historians actually call it. After World War II, America was sending massive food aid to Europe through the Marshall Plan. American onion farmers saw an opportunity and started exporting tons of onions to the Netherlands, who were desperate for food imports. But as Dutch agriculture recovered, local onion farmers wanted their market back. So they lobbied the Dutch government to ban American onion imports entirely. American farmers were furious. They'd helped feed Europe during its darkest hour, and now Europe was slamming the door on American agriculture. So they did what any reasonable group of angry farmers would do. They lobbied Congress to declare economic war on the Netherlands. Congress, apparently having nothing better to do, passed a law banning all Dutch imports to America. No Dutch cheese, no Dutch beer, no Dutch anything until the Netherlands reopened their markets to American onions. The Dutch were baffled. They'd gone from grateful allies to onion-based enemies in less than a decade. American consumers were also confused because they really liked Dutch cheese and couldn't understand why politics had to interfere with their dairy consumption. The war lasted several months until both sides realized how absolutely stupid this entire situation had become. The Dutch agreed to buy more American onions. America lifted the ban on Dutch imports, and everyone went back to pretending that grown adults hadn't almost destroyed an alliance over a vegetable. The lesson? International relations are fragile, consumer preferences are powerful, and never underestimate farmers when they're mad about market access. Also, Dutch cheese is apparently worth fighting for. War 5, the Banana War. Finally, let's talk about America's century-long obsession with controlling other people's bananas. Between 1898 and 1934, the United States invaded or occupied practically every country in Central America. And the Caribbean at least once, sometimes multiple times, all to protect American banana companies. Meet the United Fruit Company, basically the evil empire of produce. They owned millions of acres of the best farmland in Central America, controlled entire countries' transportation systems, and had the US government on speed dial whenever local governments got ideas about controlling their own resources. In Guatemala, the democratically elected government tried to redistribute unused banana plantation land to farmers. United Fruit's response: "This is communism." They convinced the CIA that Guatemala was about to become a Soviet state because they wanted to give away unused land to their own citizens. In 1954, America overthrew Guatemala's government and installed a military dictator who gave United Fruit their land back and banned unions. This pattern repeated across the region: Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, Cuba. Anytime a government threatened American banana profits, suddenly that government became a threat to American security and got a regime change. The human cost was enormous. Hundreds of thousands died in civil wars and military dictatorships that America supported just to keep banana prices low. The environmental cost was devastating too. Entire ecosystems destroyed for banana culture that poisoned soil and water supplies. Today, most Americans have no idea that their cheap bananas cost Central America its democracy, its environment, and hundreds of thousands of lives. We call them banana republics because that's literally what they were. Countries owned by fruit companies with the help of American military enforcement. The lesson? Maybe don't let corporations write your foreign policy because they'll turn entire continents into their personal plantations and call it freedom. So there you have it. 5 times humans decided that food was worth killing each other over. Salt that cost an ear and 8 years of war. Pastries that launched the French Navy. Fish that made Iceland defeat Britain 3 times. Onions that nearly destroyed NATO. And bananas that toppled entire democracies. The next time someone tells you that food isn't political, remind them that humans have spent centuries proving them spectacularly wrong. That's Dine and Conquer. Like this video if you'll never look at your spice rack the same way again. Subscribe for more food history that'll make you paranoid about your pantry. What food war should we cover next? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, remember that every grocery store is a peace treaty, and every meal is a victory over humanity's worst impulses.